Simon Duncombe, Animation Supervisor at WETA Digital.
And I'm Anders Langland, so I'm a Visual Effects Supervisor.
I just wanted to talk about your own journey. What role did you play sort of on the initial release versus what's come to be known as the Snyder Cut?
Yeah, I was Animation Supervisor on the theatrical version as well. So I got to be involved in that whole process, and so having a second chance at something now that the Snyder Cut is being released was an exciting opportunity, and it was cool to revisit that work and dust off a lot of the stuff that we knew was omitted, and so to have a chance at bringing all of that back to life was really rewarding and fun to be involved in a project that everyone was so excited about.
Yeah, I wasn't involved in the theatrical version at all. My wife was visual effects producer on it, so I got to hear vicariously about everything that was going on through her, but yeah, I didn't work with it directly.
What do you think is the biggest thing that we misunderstand about this kind of workflow? I mean, it's one thing to have a director leave for very tragic circumstances, to have another one come in, but what happens when you get that call of being told we're going in an entirely different creative direction, and we simply have to pick up the pieces and still maintain our end date? I know it's a kind of a complicated question. It's what you guys got paid money to do. But in this case, is there an emotional reaction first? Is there an excitement? Or is there simply like now a sense of catharsis that you got to do some of the stuff that you wanted to do previously?
I was personally excited when I knew this was bubbling around. It was on again, off again, on again, so we're on. And so knowing what I knew was removed from the theatrical cut, I knew there was some fun content in there to get involved in, and there was a certain amount of work that we had already done that was omitted. So for all the artists involved as well, like that's pretty gutting that I've already spent a lot of time and heart into some of that work, and so knowing that that's going to come back and they have an opportunity to finish it for the world to see it was exciting. And also for a project like this, you know, Zach is excited and he's pumped to do it, and his visual effects supervisor, DJ, you know, he's pumped to do it. So there's a lot of positive energy behind the project and sort of stuff that just rallies the troops and everyone can get behind. So and so also internally at WETA, we kind of yeah, took on that enthusiasm a lot, and that trickled down to all the artists as well. And I think it made the whole process quite smooth, which was great because the schedule was insane and we had twice as much work as last time and half the time. So it was a really cool experience. And now that it's just coming out and you know the press is seeing the screeners and this buzz about just how amazing it is hugely rewarding.
Yeah, I think it's impossible to overstate how important, you know, Zach and DJ's enthusiasm and excitement about the project was. Like, you know, that feeling of like we're finally getting to make the movie that we always wanted to make, and for the world to see it, was huge, and was, as you said, was you know, infectious for the whole crew.
It's certainly no surprise that a company like WETA, which has a great deal of experience of moving from a theatrical version to a slightly, let's say, extended version, is literally in your DNA of people futzing with their films after the fact. But if you could just talk about, this is a weird one because it's years later. Technology has obviously shifted, rendering times have obviously reduced, but it just means that you can do more complicated things. We could talk about specific elements that carried over and things that frankly you couldn't have done if you had wanted to make this 4-hour epic during that during when it was originally theatrically going to be released.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you're right. Like things have changed a lot in you know 3-4 years between the two shows. You know, Kevin Smith, who's the other supervisor on the project, likes to joke that, you know, if your show runs long enough, then shots that you finaled at the start of the show, you won't be able to open up by the end of the show because the pipeline's changed so much here. You know, so they're constantly trying to be on the bleeding edge of things, and so that does have the flip side of that coin is that stuff does move very quickly, and it, you know, makes old stuff difficult to work with, perhaps. So yeah, there was a lot of work that needed to be done when we're bringing stuff back online in order to you know, massage it into the new version of the pipeline, and a bunch of things, particularly around the simulation and the lighting simulation portion of things, like the effect simulation, like the there's that huge shot of the penetralium, the Amazon temple falling into the ocean, that was dropped very early in development in 2017. And that is a huge thing that we know, like our tools of simulation are much more advanced than they were back in the day, that allowed us to get through that huge, very complex dependent simulation relatively smoothly in the time that we had, which was quite a big ask. So there's a lot of work that's been done on those portions of things, and the way that we handle lighting is completely different as well in terms of the software now. So there's a lot of work to export from our old tools to our new tools before we can get started on a lot of those shots. But yeah, I guess the other part of that is there wasn't really anything that was not possible to do before, just because we do have such technically advanced things here. So it's more a question of some things are just a bit easier, some things are actually a bit harder, some things are different. So it's all it's a constantly moving target. So yeah,
I think our ability to process that many shots in that amount of time is probably definitely improved. Like
that's a really good point. Yeah,
the sheer number of shots that we got through in the space of 7 or 8 months of the schedule we had here was. Yeah.
So sorry to interrupt, but is that a technical shift or is that a logistical shift? In other words, are you
both? I think really, yeah. It's just that operating at that sort of scale and is always a challenge. And so but logistically, in terms of like how we structure the work and the way that we work, particularly when we're not all in the same building or even in the same country anymore, because we can't hire people from outside New Zealand and just bring them into New Zealand. They won't let them in the country, so we have to do a lot more work remotely than we would have done. Everyone's dealing with trying to deliver this work over Zoom calls all the time, as opposed to being in the same room together. So that's a big challenge. So yeah, just it's really impressive how well WETA's technology for working collaboratively at distance has worked out, as well as how how easily we can flow that much data through the pipe and enable people to work effectively in such a short space of time.
As somebody who gorged on Cinefx all through all the many years, long live Cinefx, it was always that every year I would find some sort of new paradigmatic shift. And then that seemed to stop. And from the outside, it's like you went from mocap to all of these other elements, and then suddenly it felt like these were incremental changes. On the inside, you guys are seeing the changes much more radical, but in some ways much more subtle. If you could talk about maybe shots that we won't think of as particularly showy or showcasey, but are actually near on impossible to do 4 years ago, whereas something, as you say, the simulations have gotten so that water may be a little bit easier to do than it was in 1986.
I think you can definitely touch on this one, Anders, but from my perspective, our ability to replace a lot of previously live action elements in a shot that was either a hero character or a background character, and integrating that plate at all aspects of the pipe is incredibly difficult. And these days, I feel like our CG has gotten so much better that we can just go all digital on stuff if that plate integrational element isn't worth it.
Yeah, it's certainly less.
Just because I used to think we used to hold on to that plate element like it was gold, years back. And these days, I think we're a bit more lenient on using that live action element, because it just appears to be a little faster to run with that shot, and also it frees up the shot not only for us to explore some different angle or make the action work a little bit better, but it also helps with the client as well. So they can perhaps
but like there's a showiness. I mean, the knives sort of reticulating.
Oh, that sort of, that his armor and stuff. I don't know whether that was, we were capable of doing that a few years ago, but
I think certainly the way that we treat, because his armor is iridescent, right? So the way that we treat that is more correct now in terms of the way that that's calculated. So the shifting color patterns on the surface, like iridescent effects like you see on butterfly wings or on spilled gasoline, that sort of thing. That the way that we calculate that is now more correct than what we were doing back in 2017 for the same effect. That actually ended up causing us more trouble because there's characters that the priest characters who are doing the whole Mother Box Union chanting thing, ceremony in the history lesson. We had shots intercutting with shots that were done in 2017 with priests that we would animate and render this time around. But because the way that we calculate the iridescence has changed, it was actually a bit of a struggle to get them to look the same. So we had to actually turn off that sort of more physically based layer and go back to the way that we were doing it back in the day, which is more of just a gradient, like a sort of painting the colors by hand essentially. So we actually we had to devolve our pipeline slightly to get those guys to look the same. But Steppenwolf has all the latest greatest tech on him.
And again, to push a little bit on this, is there a specific tool that we may be oblivious? Thank God we're oblivious. We're not supposed to be focusing on the effects. But somebody on the outside who realizes, oh my God, this is brand new, and I cannot believe how incredible this technology is that we don't really appreciate from the outside. And if you could just talk about your emotional feeling of finally having this project sort of come to life, formatted for IMAX, but primarily seen at home.
Yeah, the technology thing. I'm not sure that there is a good example of that.
No, I don't think we're hiding anything that's groundbreaking and it's going to change the future. Like
it is, as you say, like what we're doing here is more like just iterative improvement. It's that, and that's yes, there's paradigm shifts every now and again. Probably the biggest sea change that we've had recently is in the realms of virtual production and using LED screens to bring post into pre and main shoot, but that was obviously not something we're using on this project. For the vast majority of the improvements that we have that makes the work better over time is just little incremental things. It's just like the rendering for X, Y, and Z gets slightly better. The last big one was switching to path tracing for everything, which happened it was sort of around Hobbit, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes time. So Justice League was one of, I guess, relatively soon after that. But that was the last big paradigm shift that really just completely changed the way that we tend to approach lighting and rendering in the industry. It makes everything look more real, but all of a sudden your renders take 10 times longer. So where's the trade-off land with that?
It does look amazing. Yeah.
I think to answer your second question, like how do we feel about doing this again? Like I think the biggest thing is, as Simo said, going back and being able to revisit things that were dropped is great because people, the artists, we have hundreds of people here working on this stuff, and people do put a lot of time and effort and pass their own creativity into these things. So when shots are dropped, cut out for whatever reason, then it can be quite sad. It's something that you were really excited about is now no longer in the movie. People won't see it. So getting people to be able to see that work that they've done, not only brought back but brought back and touched up, is great for a lot of people. But also I think from a a character point of view, that's really what WETA's mostly about. Is creating characters more than anything. That's like our raison d'etre, I suppose. And that's particularly with Steppenwolf and Darkseid. Steppenwolf in particular, like actually having him as a fully digital character now actually rounded out as more of a complete character. We start 2017. He wasn't given much time to understand anything about him apart from he's the bad guy. Whereas now we start to understand a bit of the history of him with Darkseid, and their relationship, and how Steppenwolf's sort of the black sheep, and he's obviously screwed something up, and now he's paying penance for it. That he's going to have to pay for a very long time still, and desperate to get back into the boss's good books. And the sneering relationship where Desaad looks down on him, you almost start to feel bad for him, because he's been put upon quite severely. He's just obviously taking it out on everybody else, which makes him a bully too. So we're still glad that he gets his in the end. But those relationships are interesting, and those characters become interesting, and those are the things that are really fun to bring to life. So getting the chance to actually expand that. And start to get into those characters in our own heads and bring those to life. That's what's I think most exciting about this extended version of the film.
Yeah, I echo the same sentiments. Yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you guys so much. They're going to kill me if we keep going on. But yes, Sauron, Saruman. We could go on about Gollum. You can tell me all about it. That will be for next conversation. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the safe, beautiful nature of New Zealand. You're very be well, safe.
Be well. Thank you. Great talking to you, Jess.
And enjoy the time. Take care, guys.
Cool.
Cheers, mate. Have a good
Thanks,
one.
man.